Okay, are we here? We are. All right. So we tried this just a moment ago and the audio wasn't working. And so, oh well, it happens. So this is round two. We're going to give this another shot. So today I'm answering your questions. Who am I? I'm glad you asked. My name is Ron Hogue. I have a Cam Mastery site where I help people with Camtasia. So I answer questions. I have this YouTube video or this YouTube channel, and I'm trying some live stuff for a change. So normally everything I do is studio edited and it sounds great and I take out all the mistakes, but here it's live and we're just going to go with whatever works. Even if that means no audio, that's fine too. So today I'm going to answer a few of your questions. For example, let's see here. Let's jump over to this. All right. And you are here and that is fantastic. And I'm going to go to the next slide. And today we're going to talk about text padding, luminosity, recording resolution, and I'm going to try and do a video overview or review as well. So there's a video, I haven't looked at it yet. There's a student in my Camtasia Mastery course who said, hey Ron, I've made my first video. Can you give me some input? And so I'm hoping to do that here. The one downside to it is I don't think I can get the audio through the stream. So what I'll do is I'll have to listen to it as it's going through. You'll just be able to watch it. But we'll see. You know, if I figure out a way to fix that in the future, we'll go with that. But for now, I just want to at least comment on the visuals that I see. All right, so let's start with text padding. So this question came in from another video that I did on the YouTube channel, and it is asking about the spacing for the text. And in this particular video that this person commented on, they said, hey, I saw that you can you can widen the amount of space that you have for the text, but what I really want is some margins on the side. Can I build in some padding? So what I'm going to do is I am going to jump over to Camtasia and we're going to start here. Yep, my audio wasn't coming through, and so that's what I had on the last one. So let me show you what this looks like. If I have a text box and I put my name in here, I can see that the text is really close to the left-hand side here. There's very little padding. And if I look here in the upper right and I say, hey, let's look at these properties that are here in the properties panel. Where's the spacing for the margins? Where can I add the spacing? It's not there. In the previous video, I was talking about this horizontal spacing where we can stretch things out. So if I select this text, I can make things a little wider or even make them narrower than they normally would be. You can see I can push those letters closer together. But where do we get the padding? And like I said, it doesn't exist. It's not really here in Camtasia. So what I would do to fix this is I would really just make two callouts. I would combine the two so that I can get exactly the padding I want. So let me show you how I would do that. I would first go over to here in my annotations, and then I would grab a rectangle for the background. Now, if I grab, I'll grab this white rectangle for now, and I'm not going to use it, but I just want to show you it has rounded corners, and sometimes I like to have, or often I like to have, square corners. So if you look here, this one has nice square corners. So just looking at that, feel free to use the one that you prefer. If you like rounded corners, go for the rounded corners. If you like square, you know where to find them over under the bold heading. Okay, so here now I want to put some text on top of these. And like I said, I'm just going to go with this square one. So I'll jump back over here and I'm going to grab some text. And of course, this is white text on a white background, which won't look great. So instead, I will change this text color to something. There we go. How about some blue? And of course, somehow I did not grab the right thing. Oh, I just need to move this over here. There we go. So now I'll put this here. Now, if I made this the same size, right, and I did the same thing I did last time, just right click, Ron Hogue, and I make the font larger. Make it larger. Try again. Select all. I'll do it that way. And then make this larger. I can see, well, I can see now because of auto resize text that it's actually going out beyond there. So let's grab this and drag this in this way. And I'll go to the left alignment and you can see again, there's, it's right up against the border. We don't want that. So all I was saying was you get to decide where you want this text box to be. So you can see I just resized the box, and now no matter where the text is, it will be perfectly placed with the border that I want. So if you want a little border or if you want a larger border, I can go in further. I'm going to Control Z to undo that. So let me just grab this and I can put this wherever. One other thing I want to show you, this is neat. If you say you wanted to keep the proportions the same, you want it to come in on both margins the same, let me show you just to make sure these margins are exactly centered. One of the things you can do is hold down the Control key while you're dragging in, and notice that it's dragging in the left and the right together. Okay, so that's one way to do that, and then I can get the border. Of course, if I just had it anywhere, I could come in and use the snap lines to get it right in the center. But I was just saying you can use, if you use the Control key, that does, I'll just show you here on this. If you use Control, see how it kind of keeps the center in the center, and then if you're changing length or width or height, it just adjusts accordingly. Okay, so that's what I would do. I would put those two together, and with those two, of course, like I said, we have the padding that we want, and I would group them. So I would do a Control G to group those two. Oop, Control Z. Let me grab those two together. Control G to group. Now I have that group. If I look down here at the bottom, I can see that those items are grouped together, and this is all one thing, and I can move this one thing around as I need to. Okay. So that was question number 1. Let's go and check out question number 2. There was a question about alpha and luminosity in track mats. Okay, so this one's a little bit of a complicated one. So let's talk about what this question's talking about. So the video was about track mats. If you remember, track mats allow you to basically cut out any shape you want. A lot of people use text for this, and then play a video behind it, or have a picture or image or whatever you want. So it's just a way for you to have some sort of shape, whatever you want. A lot of people like to have a circle and then put a video behind, like a talking head in a circle, and that was great. And we used alpha to do that. And then this question is, how's alpha different from luminosity? So let's look at that quickly. So I'll jump back over to Camtasia. And what I want to do is I'll just show you very quickly how I would do the alpha. So just a quick review. So I'm going to go, let's see here. Let's go to all. And I don't see my circle. I thought my circle was under bold. Oh, I need to go here. There we go. So I would grab something like a circle, and then I would make it the size I want. So I would hold down the Shift key and drag this up or down. Let's say I want it this large. And then I would find a video. Let me find a video here. Let's go to, yeah, I mean, I can use a 4K video file. That's not a problem. I'll drag that in here. And we said that we would take this and we would want to make it the length of the entire video, which I know I'm not doing. But I would take this and resize something like this. And then I would right click. So let's look over here. I'm going to zoom in. I would go here to track 2 where the shape is. And let me just drag this a little bit further this way so you can see. I'm going to right click this and I would choose alpha. And so now notice it cut out everything else around it except that shape. And in fact, if I move this shape, you can see the edge of that circle. So if I said, oh, you know what, I actually want this a little bit larger or a little smaller, I can do that. So I say, oh, maybe I don't want my microphone in there. So let me come over this way and I'll hold down the Shift key and I'll make the circle a little smaller, right? Or something like that. So that's how we would use the track mats, is by right clicking and choosing alpha. If you want the opposite, alpha invert, cuts out everything. So there's a way for you to censor somebody if you wanted to do that. All right, but the question is, what is this luminosity thing? So let me try luminosity and show you. And you say, well, that kind of looks like the same thing. But let's talk about what luminosity is. So with luminosity, what we're doing, let me back up a little bit. Track mats take a shape, and whatever that shape is, like the border of the shape or whatever, we're going to let something see through that shape. And of course we could invert it and not show what's behind that shape. All right. So that's all about whatever that shape is. For luminosity, we're using light and dark parts of the screen. Think specifically white through black and all the gray shades in between. And we're going to let the thing behind it be shown based on how bright that color is. All right. So the more white it is, it would be completely transparent. And then the darker it is, it would be completely opaque. So let me show you an example just using this circle that I have here. So we'll cut back to our Camtasia here. And I will grab this and I will just show you what happens if I make this completely white. Where you see that it looks rather bright now. Like it got brighter. Okay, now what happens if I go through here and I want to drag this down? So I'm just going to make this, let me move this. Now let's do this instead. There we go. I'm going to grab the color here and I'm just going to drag it down. So notice as I do it, less is showing through. So it's just the whiter it is, the lighter it is, the more it'll let through. And then the darker it is, the less it lets through. So that's what the luminosity is for. It's saying, however, let more the light through or more the dark through. Of course, I could invert this as well. I'm not going to do that just right now because I don't want to confuse anybody. But let me show you here. I'll do this other thing. I'll choose gradient. And so before I do that, let me just move this up so I can show you really what's happening here. I'm going to fill this with a gradient. And so you can see it's lighter here and gets a little bit darker as we go down. So it's not very much, but when I drag it down here, you can see that it does actually make this bottom part a little darker. If I drag this down, you can see that it does, there is a little bit of a brightness that changes based on the fact that this circle has a little bit more of a dark area down below. Okay, now how is this really useful? There are certain video assets that you can download that use this light and dark, and it could be completely white, completely black, or shades of gray in the middle. And I've downloaded some of those. In fact, I think I still have, let's see if I have this up. I do. So what I did was I went to pixabay.com and I typed in ink drop. Now, why did I type in ink drop? Well, because I knew that I wanted some of these ink drops. So I found this cool one. I'm just going to leave my mouse over to show you. So here are several different transitions, and you can see it's just black and white for the transition. And then I also grabbed this one here, and I grabbed this one here. So I just downloaded those 3, and I saved them. And so what's great about Pixabay is it's free. So I was just able to go to pixabay.com, typed in ink drop, and then you can download the videos. So if I just clicked over to this particular one, you can see over here there's a free download. You get to choose the size. I chose 1920 by 1080, and so that was perfect. That's what I wanted. So let's look at what this looks like inside Camtasia. How would we use this? So let me jump back over to Camtasia, and I'm going to, let's zoom out. We'll leave this camera video here. So I'm going to grab those assets. I put those in a folder, and let's grab those. So I'm going to grab, I think this one was the first, I don't even remember. This one. I'm just going to grab this one and drag it over. Okay, let's make sure that worked. And let me bring it up here so I can see it. It's not going to work. Oh great, Camtasia's not responding. Okay. Well, that's clearly a problem if I'm trying to show you how to do something in Camtasia and Camtasia doesn't work. And so, technical difficulties is all a part of, you could tell this is truly live because I would have edited all this wonderful part out. And I'm not sure why it's giving me a little bit of a fit here, but it could be because of the file type. I thought it was an MP3 or MP4, but let me look here and look at its properties real quick. Yeah, it's just an MP4. It can't preview it for some reason. So there might be something up with this file. I'm not sure. Clearly Camtasia doesn't like it. So we're gonna kill Camtasia. So let's go ahead, grab Camtasia, end that task. Okay, now let's try it again. Camtasia should come up and say, hey, I found this old file that you were using. You want to bring that back? And I'm going to say, no, that's okay. So here's what it says. We'll just minimize this real quick. So close unexpectedly. Well, okay, fine. We'll go ahead and open it. I thought, we don't need to use this, but let's go ahead and use this. So we're in Camtasia 2020. Of course, we have to be using Camtasia 2020 for any of this Luminosity or track mats. Doesn't exist in any of the previous versions. All right, so good. Looks like we're back. Let's jump back in. Here then, there it is. It was just on the wrong screen. Here, I'm just going to grab another one since that one didn't work so well. Let's grab this ink drop instead. And it looks like that one works. Okay, so let's look at the ink drop. I'm just going to press the space bar to play through it. And you can see like this ink hits whatever it hits, glass or something, or water, I don't know, and then goes through. So we could put that down here in our luminosity. Oh, wow, that looks very scary. I don't like that at all. Let's change this to luminosity invert, and then we can have like a splash right as this grows and shows my face in this case. All right, I wouldn't really do that for this. Instead, what I would do is something more like a logo. So let me instead find a logo and drag that in and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to put my logo here, and then I'm going to put that ink drop above and make sure that it's centered, because I'm not quite sure that it's centered. Well, yeah, it's pretty close to centered. So what I would do is I'll put it down here and I'll play it. There we go. And you can see how it's basically like this video, I don't know, it's animating my logo by putting that ink dot. All right, let me just play through it again. I'll hit play. You can see it just kind of appears, and then there's the logo. All right, let's try the other one. Let me copy the logo, paste it, and let's try that other ink asset that we had. Oh, this one says transition. Oh, it was the ink asset that didn't work. All right, so let's use a transition instead. So let's grab this, and I'll show you how I would use this. Now, these transitions are really fast. So I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, let me play through. Yes. So that's one transition. Here's a second transition and third transition. So it's just 3 transitions that we have, and we really get to decide which of those 3 we want to use. And maybe we want to use all 3 at different points in our video. So what we're going to do is we're going to use luminosity to cut from one video to the other. This is how I would do that. So let's go further out here. In fact, maybe I'll just start a new, let me just do a file new project. And we won't save any changes here. We'll just start from scratch. And I'm going to bring in a couple of videos. So let's see. So we know we want the transition. So we'll grab that and drag that in. And let's say we just want to transition from a video. We'll do my camera video. Actually, let's use, let me use a camera video. I'll use this. That's a 2 gig file. Oh, that's kind of large. That's okay. We'll use I don't know if I want to use something that big. I'll grab it just because it's here. And then I'll grab this screen recording behind. Okay. And I say behind, but let me show you. I'm going to use this. So here I am on Camtasia for Mac. And as I play through here, I'm showing like an installation on Camtasia for Mac. But at the beginning, I'm talking, and there's nothing really happening on the screen. Or there isn't much happening, maybe. Okay, doesn't matter. I'm going to bring in this camera video. And let's see, I really start talking right about here. So we'll just cut this part out. Okay. So I have my camera video, and at some point I cut over to the Mac. So as you see, I stop and turn. And down here, I'm talking a lot to it. So I'm really spending most of my time. Okay, so yeah, just at the beginning, I'm looking at the camera. So looking at the camera, and then at some point, I want to transition from me over to the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this transition, and let's see where, let's say I want to use the one that goes the other way. Yes, so I want to use this one. Oop, Control Z, and let me just kind of show you what I'm doing here. I just cut that part out. I want to go over to, where do I start? Yeah, so I'm turning to look there. So right about here, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to grab this transition here. So what I want to do is transition from me over to the other video. All right. So it goes from this white over to black, and then I would just want it to stay black. So what I would do is I'm going to hold down the Alt key and then drag this off to the right. So it's just a plain black screen the rest of the way. So however long I need to talk, and then I come back to the camera right around here. So maybe I'll have this black through here, and then I could insert another transition. But for now, let me right click here and do luminosity and show you that I'm here. Let's also use Alt to get this white at the beginning. So white for the beginning. So here I am talking, it's me on camera. Then I get to here, I'm going to hit the space bar to play. And then it cuts over, and now I'm watching this thing. And as long as, so let me grab this whole track and drag this up and just show you. So anything that's white is going to be me. It's going to be track 2. Anything that's black is going to be track 1, just whatever's below it. Okay, so that's how this works. And I'll do one more. I'll add maybe another transition to show this transition from white to black or black to white. We could go either way. I guess actually the transitions, the way they're built, is white to black. So I don't know that I would be able to transition back perfectly, but I think you get the idea how we can use luminosity. And I'll just show you here, like when I'm at this point in the middle of the transition, you can see it has this, it looks kind of funny or kind of weird to go from camera to screen like that, but it's basically allowing you to create your own transition without having to use any of the built-in transitions from Camtasia. Okay, that was kind of long, but hopefully you understand luminosity. Sometimes we refer to it as Luma as well. But again, the big idea here is when we want to use luminosity, we're going to right-click and choose luminosity. So right-click that eye icon and choose luminosity. And if we needed to flip that around, if we needed to invert that, we could. We could say that, that we want the white to be the screen, and then we want the black to be my camera. Of course, that's completely wrong because I'm not looking at the camera there. So we'll just flip those for the black and white, and there we go. Okay. So next question is, that was the Luma. All right, so there I had a Facebook question, and since I don't own the Facebook group, it was a private group, but I helped this guy out, and he said, hey, quick question. What are the best dimensions to record for creating videos in Kajabi? So he's using Kajabi to create his courses. He said he uses a Camtasia and then shows a screenshot. Now, what's important about the screenshot here is this is Camtasia for Mac specifically. And I know because this doesn't look this way on PC. But the question is still valid regardless of whether you're on a Mac or a PC. And so what I did was I wanted to show, first I'll tell you what I mentioned to him as the answer, and then I'll talk to you about an option. So bottom line is I use 1080, right? So I record 1080, this stream is 1080. Everything I try to do, I record, I produce in 1080. That's ideal because then whatever I'm producing is very crisp. I get a very clean, crisp look to the visuals I use, to the text. Everything looks great. So if you can both record and produce in the same resolution, you'll get the crispest video. All right, so that's the bottom line. But I said there is a time whenever you might want to bump that up and actually record a little bit higher. So on the Mac, he has a Retina display, and which allows you to go, basically it's like a 4K display. And maybe you're using a Microsoft Surface and have a 4K display available to you there. Let's look at that. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to do a new project. So we will not save this. And I will find, here we go, Mac. So I have a 1080 recording, and I have a 4K recording. And I just want to show you the differences here. So I'm going to drag both of these in, to the 1080 first, and then the 4K. And what I did was I went to the TechSmith website. All right, so the whole idea here is just to show you, let's go a little big here, is just to show you the TechSmith website and, or whatever website you want to show. And I'll do the same thing here. There we go. Okay, so just playing through this real quick, I type in the TechSmith website, it loads, I click Products, Camtasia, and then I go to Downloads. Okay, I do the same thing over here, techsmith.com, go to Products, Camtasia, and then I click the download for the free trial. Now, those look very similar, right? When you're looking at this, you might not see any difference. However, when we're talking about certain things on a screen, Oftentimes, as you know, I like to zoom in to different parts of the screen. So what I'm going to do is assume that you're typing in the web address to a site, and that's very important. You want to make sure that's nice and big on your screen, and you want people to be able to see that large. So you're just going to zoom in. So let me show you that on the 1080 version. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this 1080 screen here, and I'm going to say, hey, let's scale this up. Actually, I'll add an animation to both of these. So I'll do a Shift A here, Shift A here, and at some point I'm going to just animate these up. So I'm going to start at the regular size and then zoom in. And what I want after the animation is I want to go to 200%, and I want that to be in the upper left. Okay, so just show me the upper left of the screen, 200%. I'm going to do it for both. And this guy, all right, so when I look here and I look here, very similar. All right, let me go though and show you what this looks like at 100%. Now I'm going to hold, I'm looking in the middle of the screen, and just seeing in the middle of the screen doesn't work well. So I'm going to pan. So it's going to grab, it's going to use like a hand and grab the screen, and I'm going to drag it so that I can get into the upper left-hand corner. Okay, so I'm going to do that by holding down the space bar. We can tap space to play, but I'm going to hold down the space bar to pan. So if I hold down space, you see my cursor changes to a hand. I'm going to click here and drag so I can see what this looks like. So now this is the upper left for me going into techsmith.com, and let's take a look at that. So I'm going to just go here, and this is what it looks like. It looks nice, crisp, clean. I hit play, it zooms in. We say, let's go to techsmith.com. So yeah, this looks fine. You know, we're looking at, now again, this is I'm zoomed into 100%. Let me just here make this bigger so you can see. We're really using more of the screen here. Okay, and it's just playing through. You say, yeah, that probably looks fine. I'll just try and maximize that as much as I can. Okay. You say, that looks good. At least I think it looks good. But let's do the same thing over here. So again, let me just play through real quick. I'm going to hit spacebar play. It zooms in, and that looks decent. I would be proud to play that. Okay, and I want to get to where the text or the Camtasia logo is. So when we go to products, Camtasia, I see it right there. Okay, good. I'm going to do a split so I can go right back to this point. I could do a marker as well. Let's do the same thing here with the 4K version instead of the 1080. So here I'm going to hit space, and now look at this. Look how crisp and clear this is, right? As I'm typing through here, and I'll go through, look at the fonts, everything. I click on Camtasia. Look at this. I'm going to do a split here. So look at how crisp and clear this is compared to this. Now this isn't bad. When I look at the 1080 version, I'm completely happy with this. I would absolutely use this. It looks great. But when I go back over here and I look at the comparison between these two, and I say, wow, that's just so much crisper. Oh man, it just looks so great. I mean, I don't even like zooming out. I want to show you, like, that looks fantastic to me. That would be a reason why you might want to record larger and then produce it at your 1080, for example. So if you can record in 4K, you go for it. Like I said, if you're doing a lot of zooming in, it looks so crisp. It looks so great when you can zoom to 100%. The downside, though, of course, is anytime you're working in 4K, realize that that is 4 times bigger than what you had in your 1080, right? Because you have your 1080 and, let me do this. You have your 1080 and 4K, you're like, well, 4K is just like 2160, right? But you have one version here, one version here, one version here, one version here. You're doubling 2 dimensions. So when you double this dimension and this dimension, then it's making it, can you see the bottom? Yeah. It makes it 4 times bigger. So that's, of course, a lot more drain on your processor. It's just it's a lot heavier of a, it's going to suck a lot more resources out of your computer. So if you have 4K, if you have the ability to record 4K, and you have a great computer that is allowing you to manipulate that and not stutter so much and not freeze up or anything like that, or crash like my Camtasia did, then that's fantastic. Now, my computer's great. So anyway, again, bottom line, 1080 I think looks fine. And if we, like I said, if we just look at this though, that just looks so crisp compared to this, which looks great, but man, it's just not that. So that's the difference for us. Okay, now I beat that dead horse. Let's go on to our next one. And this is the video review. So Barb gave me a video review. Oh, and I think I closed that tab, didn't I? I had that tab ready to go and then I closed it. Nope, it's here. Perfect. So Barb gave this to me. I'm going to put the headphones on now and I'm going to listen, and I'm just going to hit enter and take a look at this and just talk through it. Nice. And there was a little bit of a bah sound. That was good. Okay, so I'm looking here. This is good. Okay, and I'm listening to the audio as well. So it's only a 43-second video, so thank you for making the clip nice and short. And so I think maybe that might be all she wanted me to check on, was the audio and then how this video is coming in. Okay, great. So let's rewind this and let's play through. So the first thing I want to check is the, what do I want to say? The quality. So it is at 1080, so that's perfect. I just wanted to make sure you're both recording, producing, and uploading at 1080, so that's perfect. And then as I play through this is a pretty cool intro, and it looks like completely custom made, which kudos to you, Barb. This is, I'm really impressed actually. So it looks like a bunch of circles that come together and move, and as they come together, they form Camtasia. That's really cool. Okay, and then you've or I should say come together with the sheep, and then there's a logo that you can put over top. And I'm sure you'll have your logo here as I read through the question. So let me go back to the question, because there were a lot of points in this question. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that. Let's make that nice and big. All right, some problems and questions from editing. I cannot stitch any media clips together, even if they are highlighted. Is grouping just as good? Okay, so let's talk about that first. Is grouping just as good? So when we talk about stitching media, you can't stitch together media that are two different things. They just can't be, two different clips at all. The only way to stitch together media is to have the same clip, parts of the same clip, and bring those together. So let's say, for example, I'm recording this camera, and I cut out the beginning and I cut out the end, and I find a couple places in the middle. I can stitch all that together because that was all one recording, one clip. But if I stop the recording and then I start a new recording, and then I'm doing the same thing, I just have, part one and part two, I can't stitch those two together because they're two separate clips. They're two separate files. Even though it's the same camera, I recorded on the same day, within minutes, the files themselves are separate. So you can't stitch together, two images, for example. And so that's just probably the issue. I'm guessing that's the issue you're running into on the stitching. You just can't stitch multiple files together. It has to be a single file. So if you can't stitch, that's probably why. Is grouping just as good? Absolutely. And you don't even have to group if you don't want to. If you look at some of the videos that I do, I just cut it up, and I don't need to use stitching at all. In fact, if we go back over to Camtasia, one of the things you'll notice if I go to Edit Preferences is I prefer not to use auto stitching at all. I don't use, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me zoom way in here. So in the Edit Properties, I choose not to enable auto stitching. I don't like auto stitching. And if you want to see what that looks like, let me go ahead and enable it and click OK. Like I said, this is one of the things I usually take off right at the beginning as soon as I install this. So if I go here to this Mac, and I say, and let me just zoom out. Let's go to Fit, and I select this, and I say, well, I don't need this. I'll Control X that, and then I'll Control X this piece, and then I'll Control X this piece. Right, so I just go through. When I make all those cuts, notice it's all one piece. And if I zoom in here, you can see that there are little stitches in between. You could probably see those little lines. And it, like I said, it just stitches. You could see very close to the playhead there. There's this, it just stitches. Okay, so that's auto stitching. I don't prefer to do that. Of course, I could do a split. So I used S to split, and now I have two separate clips. I can go back and I can highlight these, and I think it's Control-Alt-I. Yes, we'll restitch those if I need to. Okay, but like I said, I don't like to use that necessarily. I don't like to use stitch. So instead, I turn that off. So I go to Edit, Preferences, and I disable auto stitching. Okay, so that is the first part of the question. Now, the next part of the question. Sometimes the video pixelates during editing, but it may or may not be okay in the final video. Any ideas? Yes, I do have ideas on this. So anytime we're using Camtasia, we're using system processing power, and especially in Camtasia 2020, I believe, Barb, you said you're using 2019, but 2020 seems to use a lot more processing as well. So if you're playing through, it shouldn't really be pixelating. My guess is that it's like freezing a little bit as you're trying to go through, and the frames are just kind of jumpy, if you want to think of it that way. That's totally fine because Camtasia takes the time it needs to put the video together. It doesn't matter what it looks like as far as the playback for you in the preview. It's just whatever the final video looks like. So don't worry if it stops or shudders or hiccups or anything like that along the way. That's fine if that's what you mean by pixelate. Pixelate technically, though, if we go back to Camtasia, let's go back to Camtasia. Pixelating is more, we'll say okay, is more like, whenever we zoomed in on this and we saw this at 100%, right? That wasn't real crisp here, but it was here. So this is not really pixelated at all. But the more we zoom in on this, right? If I were to zoom in really far, I can see that's not a real crisp or clean border around that. So this, in fact, would be pixelated. And so if you are zooming in too far, that could cause things to be pixelated. So maybe you have a very wide view. Maybe you're using like a smartphone or something like that, and you're recording a whole lot, and you say, well, really all I need is this little piece in here. So I'll crop things down and then I'll expand that. Of course, that would be pixelated. Okay, let's go back to the question. And let's say, does the video have to be on one track only? No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. I use video on multiple tracks. And in fact, if you have audio that you're like background music and you have your voice as well, it doesn't have to be all on one track. My preference is to put all of one type of video on one track. So if you have your background music at the bottom, perfect. And then above that, you have your audio, your vocals, I should say. That's what we would want to have. So I would try and keep all those together, because if you need to raise the volume or lower the volume, then what we can do in Camtasia is we can go over and let me just zoom in down here. I can right click on a track and I can select all media on the track. And so if this was all audio on this track, I've selected it all, and then I could go to the audio portion and then raise it. So if we have, there we go. Nope. So if we have all of our one type of media, whatever that is, if you have all your screen recording on one track and all your audio on one track, that is ideal when you can do it. I've done it where I've done a recording and I had the screen recording, and my preference is to put a 200% mouse cursor. So I changed the properties of the screen recording. Sometimes I forget to do that. I try to make it one of the first things I do. I recommend that you also do that. Start your screen recordings with a 200% cursor. But if you forget, not a problem. Again, we would just go back over to Camtasia. And like I said, I would just go down here, right click the track, select all media on track. And then I would say, grab that cursor and change that cursor size up to 200. And now it's done for all of these. So I really have 5 different clips on here, and everything looks perfect because I was able to apply it across all of them. Okay, back to the question. I cannot figure out how to put text or my logo in the Camtasia intro. Do I need a vector logo? How do I replace Camtasia with my course name? I've tried highlighting the text, double clicking, and won't let me add text. Okay, it looks like you are using something that is already created inside Camtasia. So this is what I would do. If you have your video, wherever that may be, let's say this is your video, and what we want to do is put our logo on here. I can grab my logo. Where's my logo? All right, so I have it with alpha. You can see this is just a PNG image. It's not it's not a vector, and so I can scale this up or down or whatever, and I can put that in. And it looks like, let me go back to your video real quick. It looks like you just kind of have it like bouncing in. Let's see. We'll just reproduce it. Whatever it does on your video, I'm going to reproduce it on mine. So it zooms way out and then in and bounces. Okay. So I would say, let's try and apply that here so it's a little easier to see. What I would have you do is just apply a behavior. So I would go over to behaviors. I would just grab any of them, it doesn't matter which one, and apply it. And the reason it doesn't matter is because we're going to choose the in, during, and out. So in, I believe what it's doing is a fly in. So let's try that. Yep. So it does a fly in, or at least that's what it looks like. So I would start with that. So it flies in. It's probably, it does it faster, so you would probably want to increase the speed. That might be too fast, but let's give that a try. Yeah, that might be too fast. So, find, whatever the right speed is for you and whatever, there we go. So that's the first part. Then the during, it says it's going to drift. It's going to do drifting, which I don't like. It's just going to bounce up and down a little bit, right? And what yours does is, I think, let's play through it real quick. Comes in and just bounce. Okay, so it looks like just maybe one bounce or one spring. What is it? Drifting, fading, jump. Is it a jump? No. That's a pulsate, I think. So we're going to do a pulsate, and we're not going to loop forever. We're going to do one loop. Let's give that a try. So it comes in. Okay, that might be more than what we want. The scale was a lot bigger than I wanted. So maybe just like a 102 or 103, something like that. Let's see here. Okay. And I could probably, no, that might be what we want. Is it bounce? Let's try bounce. Let me just move this off to here so we can show this. Okay, so that's somewhat what it looks like. Pulsate might not be the one we want. I think that's the one we want though. Yeah, I would play with pulsate and just find whatever it is that you want. Maybe you want, maybe it is a little bit bigger. And the loop time, well, we don't need a loop time. We're not looping. But let me just try it once more. Fades in. Okay, that's fine. Drifting, fading, jumping, non-pop-up. Let me just try pop-up real quick and see what that does. Okay, oh, okay, yeah, it swings back and forth. So that might be something you want. Pulsate is what we just did, I think, right? Yeah. Okay, and that just kept going. And like I said, I would drop that. I don't remember reveal. It looks like it just kind of fades in, fades out. And shifting. I think does that bump up and down? Yeah, just goes up and down. So I would go with pulsate, and I would do it once. I would not do any loops, or maybe 2 loops, and that's it. And I would definitely change the scale down because I don't like the 108. Let's try that. Okay. All right. And I think that answers your question. So that's how, the last part is the flying out. So let's go back to this. The out part would be a fly out, I believe. So it did its thing, and then, oh, that is not what I wanted. Shrink is what we want. So I'm going to make this a little shorter. Flies in, does its little bounce thing, and then shrinks out. There we go. So you can see here, I just recreated it. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm guessing you're using some pre-built Camtasia asset. You can grab any logo you want. You saw the image that I grabbed. I was able to basically reproduce that, and it's all done through behaviors. And you can, there's so much to do with behaviors, but try that if you want to reproduce your video. So let's see what else. I think we're near the end of the questions here. Also try putting, okay, text. Yeah, we don't want to use text. You stick with, oh, if you were using text, yeah, you could absolutely use text instead of the logo. And so a very quick way to show you this, so there's my logo. I can just grab an annotation. Let's go full screen here. And I would grab text and literally just drag the text right down here and let go. And now watch me play through this. And that's it, right? So whatever that text was, you just literally drag it and replace it right on top. Oh, except you can't do that in 2019. You can only do that in 2020. All right, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but well, it's not going to be much more difficult. Let me show you what I would do. So I'm going to go back over to Camtasia. I'm going to Control Z to get back to my logo. This is how I would do it in Camtasia. I would grab your text. So you say you want this to be your course name. All right, so Barb's course. And you want the same thing. You just go in here, right click, and say, I want to copy all the effects, everything that you applied here. And now down here, let me just zoom in. I want to right click. Oop, a little hard to see that. Let's try here. And I want to paste these effects. So I just right clicked. So go here, right click, and I say, copy these effects that are on this particular item. And then over here, right click, oop, try again, and paste the effects. So now if I go through and play, oh, you can't see that. Let's try this again. Play through it. There it is. And it goes away. All right. So not a big deal if you're using Camtasia 2019. Just copy and paste those effects. And the other thing I'll do is I'll copy, I'll bundle this up for you so you have it available as well, so you don't have to reproduce everything. And I'll put it in a download for you. So look in the description. Give me some time to put this out on the internet, bundle it up, and if you want to download it, anybody watching, you can download it and apply the same thing. So you can just copy and paste. It will be in the 2020 Camtasia 2020 version. So I'll have to open it in Camtasia 2019 and save it in 2019. So those of you who have the older version can still take advantage. Okay, great. Back to the question. A lot of trouble getting clear audio using your phone and a lav mic. Is it clear enough or do you need to do something different? As I listened to this, it sounded clear to me. I'll listen again after this and I'll reply individually. A lot of questions. Appreciate the feedback. You're welcome. One more question. My audio tracks are different heights. Not all at the top of the track. Should I go in and adjust them at the same level? The short answer is yes. So Barb has a couple of audio tracks. So let's go here to Camtasia and I'll just show you, I'll pull in a couple different types of audio. I'll go over to here and I'll grab the 4K video, the 4K audio, and we'll get this to fit. Okay. And so she says, hey, I have a couple of different levels. Let me zoom to the whole project. And it's taking a little while to get to work all that out. There we go. And the question is about setting up, making sure that the peaks match up, because you might have some audio that's like this and some that's like this, right? So some that are a little bit higher than others or whatever, and you do want to try and match those as close as you can. Now, in these newer versions of Camtasia, 2019 and 2020 for sure, when you go to project settings, and let me just zoom in here, project settings show us that we have auto normalize loudness. And so auto normalize loudness is enabled. You saw that when this audio came in initially at the beginning, down here at the bottom, that it was actually lower. And then after it processed a little bit, everything jumped up. Why did it do it? Auto normalize loudness did that to try and balance everything out. So in Camtasia 2019 and Camtasia 2020, that's a great feature. Give that a try, right? Or not give it a try. It's enabled by default. So it should just happen. So you shouldn't have to do much playing with the two different audio levels. But if you need to, yeah, you absolutely can. All right, so I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, let's cut over to Camtasia. I'm going to uncheck this and show you what it looks like without the auto normalize loudness. So here you can see clearly that this audio that I recorded is louder than the other camera audio. And so I would just select it and then I would go to the audio part here in the upper right. Let's go in a little further. And I would just, bump up the gain till it looks like it's close to what I have here at the bottom. So if I zoom back, I would bump this up until they both are pretty close to matching. And so, something like this is fairly close. Now it looks like these peaks are a little higher. When I look down here, I feel like these peaks are on the camera video are a little higher than the peaks down here. It just looks like it's a little more exaggerated. So another thing you could do is I occasionally will use audio compression and drag that in just to help minimize those peaks. Now when it comes in by default, it's way too much, way more than what I want to use. And you couldn't see all that. So let me just show you again. Let me just Control Z. I used audio effects, audio compression, and I dragged that down here to this track, and this is what it's like without, and then this is what it's like with. Now that's too much, so what I like to do is I like to go to low, and that is a better, I just like that better. And then typically what I do is after I go to low, I go to custom, and then adjust as needed. So sometimes this threshold, they just put a little bit too much compression. So the lower you go on the threshold, the more compression there is. And so sometimes I like to lift it up a little bit, not quite that much. But you can see threshold is really that magic number where you're going to get these to look almost exactly the same. And then with the gain, I can just move this gain down to about here, and that's pretty close. I mean, that looks almost exactly the same. So you can play around with the audio. Definitely want to try and get those to match up as much as you can. I'll also mention that occasionally I would have to use headphones, because even though those spikes and peaks and things look similar to me in Camtasia itself, it might not sound the same if it's coming from two different recorders or two different audio sources. So I have gone on long enough. I can't believe that you've watched this far. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I want to remind you that if you want to find out more information about Camtasia, check out my Camtasia course. You can do that at cammastery.com. And if you like these videos, if you like the live format, great. Let me know. Let me know in the comments if it works for you, or if you're like, nope, just give me the studio stuff, Ron. I just clean it up, make it as short as possible. That's more my style. I dig that too. I think both are going to be a good option for folks, but regardless, thank you very much for stopping by.